All right, so let's say you have a bunch of values and you're asked to figure out the standard deviation for this data set. Now, let's recall for the average, the formula is actually the sum of all values in the set divided by the number of values. That would be by definition, but that'd be the formula that we would be using. For standard deviation, to figure out the standard deviation, it is actually the sum of every single difference. So you would take every single value, subtract it by the average, then square it. So taking the value, subtracting it by the average, squaring that value, and remember, in this case, you'd have to do it 7 times and then adding up all those answers, okay? And we will then divide it by n as well. And the last step is to take the square root of it. And remember, standard deviation measures the average distance from all the points to the average, okay? So the average, I'm just going to skip to the answer there because that you should all be able to do. And so let's say right now it's that many units on average. If I have these values that I'm considering, the average would be 138.14. Now, standard deviation, how would I do that? This is one way of doing it, following that formula. So what I will focus on first is finding the sum of all the values minus the average of that data set and then square it. That's what I'm going to focus on first. So just this part right here. Okay, so I'm going to go and write it out. That would mean that I would have to take 125 and subtract it by 138.14, then square it. Okay, plus the next would be taking 143, subtracting the standard deviation from the average from it, then squaring that. And this process continues throughout the whole set. Plus, I will continue here. And so I take 152 minus 138.14. So as you see, the average is being subtracted from every single value in that set, then squared. Next is 149 minus 138.14. Square that. And 140 minus 138.14. Square that. Plus the last value is 120 minus 138.14. Square that. Okay. So there should be 7 brackets, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you've done that for all the numbers there. So what we've just done here is simply figuring out the top part here. That will be eventually just one number. Okay. So allow me to continue. Right. So I will figure this out, and you can use your calculator for it. I will show you one bracket, but then I have it already worked out here. So 125 minus 138.14, right? You hit equals, then you take your answer and you square it. But I think this will not work out. Oh yeah, it does. So it considers the whole answer. It's almost like it's putting brackets around it, then squaring it, and it is positive, so it works out. So I will, and I'm rounding to 2 decimals here. Ideally, you would want to use all of them, right? So that first bracket turns out to be this, and actually it doesn't need to be in brackets, right? 23.62 plus 0.02 plus 192.10 plus 117.94 plus 3.46 plus 329.06. Sorry. So I should have 7 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so sometimes it goes close to 0. It none of them should be negative, right? When you subtract and you square, you should always get a positive value. And now let's add it all up. So that total, if you add all of that up, it's 838.86. And that number is important to me to now continue my calculation towards my standard deviation answer, right? So I take that, I'm going to go back to standard deviation. I'm going to do a big square root like this. And this part we've just figured out, that's the most time consuming of all, right? Divided by n, and there are 7 values, right? So when you divide this and then square root it, your answer is 10.95 units, which we don't have units given in this case, right? So that would be your standard deviation, and you can actually try that out and verify, right? But if you ever want to get marks for this, you're going to have to actually do all of this. Okay, show me the steps. So if we did that, you can fast forward here. And of course we will be off by a bit because we are not using all decimals, right? So let me just go to the home screen and just go stat calc one variable stats, and there it is. It's 10.95 actually if you round it. But also something interesting here is that sum of x is 11 point. If you square all the values, it's interesting. But anyways, what you need to watch out for is the standard deviation, which matches, right? And so that's how you do it. That's it. That's all. So I guess you need to have this on your study sheet, right, if you want to do it by hand.